Tonight, we made history. In the words of Nelson Mandela, it always seems impossible until it is done.
Just when you thought the Democratic Party was on the verge of learning a lesson, just when you thought they were going to stop going more radical, they were going to run away from terms like defund the police, all this crazy LGBTQXIII insanity, they end up shocking absolutely no one who's paying attention by voting for, in the Democratic primary for New York mayor, the most radical candidate so far, Zohran Mamdani, a self-described socialist and Islamist, an absolute terrible person who supports multiple foreign terrorist organizations, is the choice for the New York City Democratic Party, and all the worst people on the internet.com are celebrating this. And honestly, Andrew Cuomo is absolute scum, always has been, and he proved this by running one of the most piss-poor campaigns humanly possible in the city of New York. The guy had an overwhelming name brand recognition advantage in this particular election. He had a lot of money behind him, and he still managed to squander all of that for a guy who's never held a job in real life, for a guy who's only been a citizen of this country since 2018, and for a guy who openly supports multiple terrorist organizations and is a self-described socialist. It's a disaster in every possible way. The left wing thinks that they're ascendant, and we're going to talk about all of this, plus what are the strategies to make sure that this guy doesn't win the general election. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
I will be your Democratic nominee for the mayor of New York City.
So look, to be clear, Andrew Cuomo got absolutely demolished. In the first round of the ranked choice voting system, Zohran Mamdani got around 43% of the vote, and considering all the other candidates are socialists that essentially ran on the idea that you shouldn't rank Andrew Cuomo on your ballot, it will only take a few rounds for him to officially secure the nomination for the Democrats for New York City mayor. But make no mistake about it, everybody understands where this is going. This is just a formality, and even Andrew Cuomo.
I spoke with Andrew Cuomo about the need to bring this city together as he called me to concede the race.
Has conceded to Mamdani at this point in time. And again, this guy is the absolute worst. He made Andrew Cuomo look like the best viable alternative, which just goes to show you the absolute sorry state of the Democratic Party. Now look, it is hard to articulate how bad Zohran Mamdani actually is as a candidate for any political office in this country, but the fact is, and what should have been focused on by the Cuomo campaign, is that this guy is a defund the police guy who's tweeted about defunding the police over 40 times, hasn't even deleted most of his tweets on defunding the police, and he's tweeted that we need to do so in order to help the transgenderisms, in order to help the queers, in order to help all these different various groups, because make no mistake about it, this guy is a full-on anti-white racist, and it's unsurprising that this is the guy that the New York Democrats ended up choosing. I mean, almost all of the candidates believed almost all the same things as this stupid individual, so we ended up in a situation, again, where Cuomo was the best viable alternative, and when you're in that situation for a Democratic primary, you have a disastrous field of candidates. But again, this was not what was focused on by the Cuomo campaign. There was a lot of focus on the fact that Zohran Mamdani is this anti-Israel guy. And by the way, it's not that this is not very notable. It's not that this isn't worth commenting on. Mamdani is not just somebody who doesn't want to be bent to the will of the Israel lobby in the city of New York. He's somebody who's calling for operating New York's own foreign policy that's contrary to American foreign policy based on international law that absolutely has no jurisdiction in the city, much less the entire country. Let me play you the clips of him saying that he will use the NYPD in order to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu.
Now, to the question around Benjamin Netanyahu, I was asked what I would do after he had just been issued an arrest warrant by the International Court of Justice. My answer is the same whether we are speaking about Vladimir Putin or Netanyahu. I think that this should be a city in compliance with international law. And we have seen Other countries across the world who are signatories to the ICC state that they would honor that same request, be it Canada or other countries in Europe. And their honoring of it meant that Netanyahu did not travel.
Mayor Mamdani, would you welcome Prime Minister Netanyahu to New York City for whatever he comes for, given the US is not a signatory to the ICC, so he can travel to the US, unlike a lot of other countries. Would a Mayor Mamdani welcome Benjamin Netanyahu to the city?
No. As mayor, New York City would arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. This is a city that our values are in line with international law. It's time that our actions are also.
Even though the US is not a signatory to the ICC?
No, it's time that we actually step up and make clear what we are willing to do to showcase the leadership that is sorely missing in the federal administration.
Now look, I know a lot of the Israel First types like Sneeko ended up liking this and actually ended up endorsing Mamdani, as insane as that is.
Hey, didn't see you there. Congrats though to Zohran Mamdani. It's not over yet, but it's looking like he won the mayoral race in New York City. We were all over every borough today, seeing people super excited to go out and vote. I supported him because he's the only non-Zionist candidate on that stage. I thought you needed to be bought and sold, but people are energetic. People are tired of the Zionism, and I'm excited to see what he's got. I'm not a socialist myself. I don't want everyone to be a communist getting free stuff, but I think he has some cool ideas. Hopefully he can do the best, man, and wish you the best of luck. If you do win, New York is with you, and we want you to do well, man.
But regardless of what you think of the Prime Minister of Israel or any foreign leader, the idea that the New York City mayor is pledging to do an international incident by trying to enforce international law that doesn't apply in our city is absolute madness in every possible way. But again, this should not have been the focus of Governor Cuomo's campaign. It was ridiculous for him to highlight this when you had such fertile ground to target Mamdani. Again, this is a guy who's proposing government-run grocery stores.
Grocery prices are out of control. The cost of eggs and milk has skyrocketed. Some stores are even using dynamic pricing, jacking up the cost over the course of a day depending on what they can get away with. It doesn't need to be this way. I'm Zohran Mamdani, and as mayor, I will create a network of city-owned grocery stores. It's like a public option for produce. We will redirect city funds from corporate supermarkets to city-owned grocery stores, whose mission is lower prices, not price gouging. These stores will operate without a profit motive or having to pay property taxes or rent, and will pass on those savings to you.
Now, New York City is famous for all these little delis and bodegas that exist across the city. How are those small businesses supposed to be able to compete when Mamdani is saying that he's going to have government-run grocery stores that are going to sell below market value and they're not going to have to pay rent or property taxes? Obviously, this is an attack on small businesses, but you narrowly heard a peep about it from Governor Andrew Cuomo throughout the course of his campaign. And of course, since a bunch of the other candidates are also socialist, you end up in a situation where this ridiculously stupid idea ends up becoming mainstream. And back to the defund the police thing, while you did get mentions of it, you never heard throughout the course of this campaign that Mamdani's favorite mayor, Bill de Blasio, actually initiated this policy in 2020, and the results were apocalyptic. Again, we ended up seeing a 47% increase in homicides in the city of New York, which is the greatest year-over-year increase in homicides in the history of the city of New York. And by the way, while the United States of America also saw a dramatic increase in homicides, 30% year over year, New York was way ahead of the curve on that, but Mamdani wants to go back and double down on these policies. Again, he's running on defund the police right now, even though he's not saying those words. Now again, I don't want to sugarcoat this. Mamdani is the Democratic nominee for mayor, and even though it's not 100%, he obviously has an excellent chance of being the next mayor of the city of New York. I want to talk about strategy a little bit later on throughout the course of this video, but as of right now, I do want to highlight that a bunch of lefties are doing what they always do, which is highlighting this victory as an example for the Democratic Party going forward. And honestly, I hope the Democratic Party takes this as an example for them going forward, because it will lead to apocalyptic results for them. Because the fact is, the New York City Democratic primary voting base is not representative of the country as a whole. But even with this more liberal group of voters that are way more liberal than the average voter across the country, these people split the demographics in such a way during the course of this race that if the Democrats embrace this kind of style of campaign, it would be absolutely disastrous. Mamdani essentially won because he got all of the hipster neighborhoods, all of the ultra gentrified neighborhoods, all of the neighborhoods where you have a bunch of bratty kids that have their rich parents paying for their rent. That was his entire voting base. Again, you can look at the map from the New York Times yourself in order to see this. And this is also represented in the fact that his constituency is the under 45s and the people who make over $100,000, while by contrast, Governor Andrew Cuomo won people making under $50,000, which just goes to show us that socialism is the ideology of the elites. Now, of course, in terms of demographics, Mamdani's voter base is overwhelmingly white. You can't blame black people or Hispanics for this particular vote because they voted for Andrew Cuomo, but the wealthy white elites in the city of New York backed this guy overwhelmingly. By the way, co-signed by the Asians. Most likely a lot of them are South Asian, because I don't understand why an East Asian person would vote for this person. And yeah, that is how this man ended up getting to power, because he appealed to the most elite, most bratty base within the Democratic Party, losing Hispanics, people making under $50,000, and black people in the process, which, by the way, just goes to show you that his appeal is not broader than the appeal of Kamala Harris. It's actually significantly narrower. So I am hoping that the Democratic Party ends up embracing this, because you have all the worst people and all the dumbest people behind him that are totally misreading this, and this will likely lead to further losses for the Democratic Party going forward. Now, again, back to the Israel thing real quick, there's going to be a lot of people that tell you that Mamdani won because he was anti-Zionist or anything of the sort, and in reality, I just don't think that's the case. I'm not saying that you have to be pro-Zionist or whatever in order to win election in the United States of America, but the fact is, you have a bunch of examples where the main issue of a campaign was the Israel issue. Jamal Bowman, Cori Bush, and guess what? Those progressive voting bases ended up voting those people out. The issue in this particular campaign was Andrew Cuomo's previous history, the fact that he was not well liked, the fact that Mamdani was able to hide because he didn't have to reveal all his positions, and he essentially had cover from the media that hid his radicalism. The idea that he was pro-Hamas or whatever, and that propelled him over the top, is just absurd. What ended up happening was Cuomo ran a terrible campaign, not based on the issues. He did highlight the Israel issue over and over again, and that was an error on Cuomo's part, because you're not going to be able to win being just for or against Israel in a city like New York City, in my opinion.
Are you for defunding the police? Are you for a serious reform that people can see on the ground?
I am in favor of defunding the police.
I mean, again, if Cuomo would have spent less time highlighting his radicalism on that particular issue and more time highlighting the fact that this guy is a defund the police candidate, this guy's an absolute nut job. He's proposing tax increases that are so high, you actually need statewide approval so he can't even enact them, then maybe Cuomo would have actually been able to pull this off. But it appears that his brand is too stained based on his last term as governor, which honestly is a deserved position for Andrew Cuomo. Now, as for the general election, there's actually something interesting that is developing with who is on the ballot at that point in time. Now, a lot of Republicans on social media who don't really know a lot about New York City have instantly decided that we need to rally around the unpopular Eric Adams in order to defeat Mamdani, and as of right now, I don't know if I want to get on board with that strategy, because I don't know how the polling breaks down. And for those of you who are confused, Eric Adams is the current Democratic mayor of the city of New York. He actually skipped the Democratic primary because he wasn't able to beat Cuomo or able to beat Mamdani. So a lot of people are saying, hey, since he's on the ballot for the general election, let's all vote for him so Mamdani will lose. But I don't know if that's going to work, because again, if he could beat Mamdani or beat Andrew Cuomo, he would have ran in the Democratic primary himself. The fact is, this guy is coated in scandals. In addition to that, you also have Andrew Cuomo via a different party that is also on the general general election ballot. So as of right now, the November ballot for this year looks like it's going to have 3 Democrats and 1 Republican. That Republican is Curtis Sliwa, and honestly, I think that right now the best thing that we can try to do is pump up Sliwa, hope that the 3 Democrats split the Democratic vote, and he ends up becoming the mayor, because the last go around, this guy got 28% of the vote with the campaign that had no money attached to it. The guy is considered to be a goofball by many people because he's one of the founders of the Guardian Angels, which, by the way, started existing in the 1970s and 80s in order to fight crime during the most high crime era in the history of the city of New York. So he is an institution in New York City, just not somebody people have ever, in my opinion, really considered seriously for mayor. But when you have 3 Democrats potentially, and we don't know if Andrew Cuomo is going to drop out, running in the November ballot, you could end up in a situation where these 3 Democrats split the general election vote, and that ends up leading to a Sliwa victory. Again, he got 28% of the vote last go around. If he can pull that off again, and all these candidates end up destroying themselves, then we could end up in a position where Sliwa becomes the mayor. That being said, if it turns out that Adams is the best viable option in order to defeat Mamdani, I won't like it, but I will in fact end up backing him, because you have to root for the least bad option. But as of right now, I just think it is way too soon in order to jump on that train, especially since the general election electorate is much different than the people who are going to show up for this Democratic primary. But as of right now, it is looking really bad for the city of New York, and while it might not be possible for Mamdani to get a lot of his radical socialist agenda passed through the New York City Council and approved at the state level, the fact is, him not wanting to recruit more people to the NYPD, him wanting to cut overtime for the NYPD, is likely to have similar results to Bill de Blasio's program, which means crime is likely to go up in the city of New York. Now, hopefully, this could lead to a situation where Governor Kathy Hochul, who is incredibly vulnerable at the statewide level, ends up losing the governor's race next go around and we get a Republican governor. But as of right now, it is looking bleak for the city of New York, the city that never sleeps, and that's because Mamdani actually won this freaking primary. So yeah, those are my thoughts about this particular election. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like this video, show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been talking about the madness of Mamdani winning. Till next time.